Welcome to the Nonessential podcast. I'm Steve Gibson.
I'm Ben Matlock.
And I don't know why we use our real names. We could, like,
and I'm Kurt Vulcan. Like, why? That's the weirdest way you've ever started a show. Like, why do we use our real names? That could get us in trouble.
Mm-hmm. Well, there is if you noticed on the website, like, at least on Libsyn, our main, I know you can find the show all sorts of places. But, like, I always credit you first, so it's Ben Matlock and Steve Gibson. That way, if we ever get in trouble, be like, hey, look, this is Ben's show. I'm just...
Because you know what the score is here. And you also know that I'm more than happy to die a martyr for this dumb shit. So I'll be like, yeah, it's my fucking show. Sure. Steve Gibson was made up by me. It's all part of the plan.
And you'll be on Fox and Friends or something.
And then, on Fox and Friends, they'll be like, Ben Matlock, hero?
Changed my mind.
But yeah, welcome to the Non-Essential podcast. Every week we tell each other stories. This is the last episode of 2019. I just decided that. So,
And I did not fight it too hard. It's like, what? Don't have to do work?
Right.
Okay, I guess.
But yeah, we got Christmas next week, and stuff will be going on and stuff, and it's stuff. It's stuff with stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
So this is the big, like, end of year extravaganza show.
This is the big, and like, holy shit, we got a second year through on this podcast somehow, and haven't ran out of shit from the internet.
It's getting close. Yeah. It's getting close. I think we've used every internet thing up except for like a dozen. So the astute people out there that have been listening to all of them, they'll be able to go and just type, what haven't they covered? All right. The end.
What haven't they covered? Everything you would learn in college, we have not touched on.
Yeah. Essential stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
We don't touch that.
Yeah. But the stuff you're putting off, we can help you with that.
My hope has always been that, like, some random, like, school kid finds the show and, like, just uses every episode of ours for their, like, history reports and stuff.
See, I'm hoping the opposite. I'm hoping it's just a procrastination thing, and then some dude out there just irrationally blames us for why he failed out of college. And
well, that's what I was getting at. Like, if you used our show for all your, like, school papers and stuff, there's no way you'd get to the end of the school year without being sent down to, like, the counselor's office and being
fuck that. That's bullshit. As long as you use proper formatting, we're a fair citation because we always cite our sources. You know, true. So, like, if you're mad at us, get mad at the people who lied to us.
I'm just saying, if all your book reports are about, like, serial killers and stuff, yeah.
Well, I mean, like, what are you going to write a report about? Fucking Hitler again? Like, we all know he sucked shit. What we didn't know was there was somebody in France sucking just as much shit on an individual level.
Right. Hitler was, like, the government, like, bad guy, and then I forget his name already, but the one you're talking to.
But he was
talking about. He was like a mercenary Hitler. Like, he didn't have a cause he was fighting for. He was just killing. So I guess his pockets were the cause, but anyway, so that's the kind of stuff we cover. And this week, will be no different. I don't remember how much we talked about it on air, but we talked about it on Twitter. I was hoping to have this together last week and didn't. I'm kind of glad I put it off. I was going to try to just kind of wing it without notes, and it's a pretty good story. I mean, I hate to build it up too much because then you'll all be like, oh, that was boring. But it's a story that's right in my wheelhouse. So,
Santa Claus, the serial killer.
No, it didn't, like, dawn on me until maybe 2 hours ago that this will be the show that goes up on Christmas Eve, like, day. Yeah. And we could have done some kind of holiday related topic very easily. We just
talked about how Santa is, like, the ultimate fucking con man.
Right.
Because he doesn't...
I liked the tweet going around talking about adults in these Christmas movies. Because, like, every single one's like, Santa's not real. Yet none of them ever question when presents that they didn't buy their kids show up under the tree. Like...
Right. My thing with Santa is, like, everybody's like, he's magical. He does it all in one night. And that's just shit planning. Honestly, like, he doesn't do anything that UPS drivers and post office drivers don't do every day. They're just ahead of the fucking curve. So you're not waiting until Christmas fucking night to get your shit.
See, but now I like him even more because I've never thought of it that way, but that's how I am. You'd be like, yeah, these kids need their presents on or before December 25th. Fuck, it's December 24th.
Let's just do it all in one go. It's like Claus, it's an entire planet. You can't do it all in one go. Well, what if we...
Well, he saves time by not delivering presents to the poor kids. You notice that, too? Like, Santa Claus is supposed to be this, like, great being that gives all the kids presents, but really he only gives the kids whose parents can afford to buy presents.
Like all those old, like, animated films and stuff, it's always, it's the yuppie-ass white kids. People who don't fucking need a magical man to give them toys because their parents can get them toys. It's like...
And it's always some kid that's got, like, 40 presents under the tree, but it's not the one thing that he wanted, and, oh, I didn't get that.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
And he's always, like, judging.
So Merry Christmas, everybody. Yeah.
If Santa comes to your house this year, let him know I think he's a fucker. Yeah. Anyway, what do you got this week?
Yeah, this story is not Christmas related or Santa related. It's not unusual for a man to be proud of the family name, particularly when the family has a long history of storied military service. The MacGregor clan was no exception, so when Captain Daniel MacGregor had a son in about 1786, he named him after his celebrated father, Gregor MacGregor. I'm going to assume that his middle name was also...
Gregor.
Yeah, that's what I assume. His middle name was also Gregor, which just makes him Gregor MacGregor. Or Gregor MacGregor of the MacGregor clan Gregors, if you're using the formal title. So the young Gregor MacGregor followed in his four Gregors' footsteps, and in 1803 he enlisted in the British Royal Navy. I'm just going to pause for a second, because I need to say out loud how I'm realizing now that a lot of the stupid pun jokes that I put in my notes are really fucking hard to say when you're reading.
Well, you got to stick to it.
They're funny in my head, but anyway.
Yeah.
So like his father and his grandfather, he went into military service, joining the British Royal Navy. I didn't find a lot of information about his service, not that I really went out of my way to look, because it's not really, this chapter in his life is not really relevant. But it seems like he served pretty admirably. Like, there was nothing good or bad. His time in the British Royal Navy is not the point of this story.
Except his name. His name was the only thing that was a blemish on his service.
He sailed on the Gregor ship. After his time with the British Royal Navy, records indicate that he enlisted and served with the Spanish and Portuguese armies, which kind of seems weird to me. I'm not a history buff. In fact, I'm pretty much a history idiot. But to my knowledge, back in like the 1800s and 1700s, Spain and England weren't really friendly. Like the golden age of piracy was over by then, but not by a lot.
Has England ever been friendly with anyone? The course of history and current events lead me to believe that like England doesn't even like itself.
That's true.
That's why could you imagine we talked about America has its own issues, but could you imagine we talked about all the other states the same way they talk about fucking different regions?
Well, they kind of do.
Yeah, I mean, there's
look
like
how we talk
states
about Southerners up north and that kind of stuff, and Texans.
But this is over soccer teams.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're usually relatively jokingly referring to different parts of the country, not actually they shouldn't count as citizens.
Yeah. I'm a fucking Philly fan, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, these guys get so worked up over fucking soccer. Is say what you will about the Eagles fans, but like there's throwing like snowballs that may or may not have had batteries in them at Santa Claus is different than like breaking a fucking glass mug over someone's head just because he did the chant wrong. Anyway,
yeah, he fought with the British Navy, then fought with Spain and Portugal. Like I said, the age of piracy where like Spain and Britain's like navies were like full-fledged at war was pretty much over, but Europeans' colonialism, that wonderful time period in human history, was still kind of in full tilt. And so like the way I see it is that the naval relationship between the two companies was passive-aggressive at best. Like, I don't think they were actually in like an open war, but they also would like not hesitate to sink each other's ships if they thought they could get away with it. So by 1811, Gregor MacGregor would find himself in Central America, rising among the ranks of the Army of the Captaincy General of Venezuela, who were currently embroiled in a war for independence from, of course, Spain. So it seems like this guy liked to serve in militaries, but didn't have any at all, like, loyalty to the militaries he was serving in. Because he
just liked to get shit done,
Mm-hmm. Despite flip-flopping more than Ted Cruz in an election year, I never found anything describing him. I have to get a dig on him in there.
This podcast is not a fucking Daily Show audition, all right? You gotta...
Yeah, it is. I'm sending that's what I'm using our week off for.
I mean, you would fit right in with 2019 Daily Show.
I'm probably not going to pass because I don't remember the guy's name that's the host of the Daily Show anymore. I would still address it to Jon Stewart.
Yeah.
Like, Mr. Stewart.
Well, could maybe he'd be like, oh, fuck, is this what they're sending in? I gotta go back. I gotta fix this.
Anyway, my point, he flip-flopped, but he was never, like, described as, like, a traitor or a turncoat. So that's not the story here either. Gregor MacGregor rose to the rank of General of Division in the Army of Venezuela in New Granada. Because I can't come up with better names. Word of his daring military feats spread far and wide, such as the heroic story of his retreat at Acumare, where he boldly led his troops through miles of jungle as they escaped. So, I just love that it's like this guy was a great military leader. Among his accomplishments, he retreated through the jungle.
Damn, could he run away?
So, apparently it was like actually quite the feat because it was like hundreds of miles and, jungle terrain. And
I mean, yeah, if I was one of those guys, I'd be like, dude, that dude saved our ass because the alternative is you just get fucking mowed down. But
that's like the story that like highlights his career. Like that's the banner. He has other stories and we'll get to some of them, but like the cream of the crop is he retreated at Acumare. He did see a number of victories against Spanish strongholds. However, I said that wrong. His strongholds and his involvement like went a long way to contributing to Venezuela's eventually victory and the withdrawal of Spanish control in the area. So it really cemented his reputation as a war hero in Venezuela. And when you do something well, you do well to keep doing that thing. God, I fucked that up. And that's a saying that I just made up, but it's way too awkward to become an actual idiom because I couldn't even say it myself.
When you do something well, then something must be done too. Verily, forsooth, half doth. Yay.
Fool me once, shame on me. Yeah. Now I'm going for the
William Shakespeare.
But my point is that he was very good at fighting the Spanish, and so even though the war was over, he kind of wanted to keep doing that. So he took to the seas and began leading a series of raids against other Spanish forts, points of interest along the Central and North American coasts. Like, it doesn't feel or seem like anything I read doesn't seem like he's doing it under a particular banner.
It's just like, I want to keep jacking dudes up.
Yeah. Maybe like out of the three like different countries he fought for, like Spain was the one he was really good against. So he's like, okay, this is who I'm fighting in life.
You've made a firm rival today, friend.
Or maybe that explains his time with the Spanish and Portuguese armies might have been just to, like, learn their, like, weaknesses and then exploit that. I don't know.
I doubt it was that planned. It was just...
Yeah, I do too. He would sail in his often undersized fleet and take control of Spanish fortifications. I guess he was incredibly skilled at taking the fortifications, but like every single player in today's NBA, he had absolutely zero interest in playing defense. So instead, he would opt to set sail and get the hell out of there before the Spanish Navy could respond. Which I assume just means that the Spanish reinforcements would arrive, they'd find an empty fort, and they could just move, like, right back into it. Like, I didn't really understand the strategy. It's like, yeah, we took this fort, but they're going to be coming for us, so let's get the hell out of here. It's like, but then...
So, like, you're not, like, this formidable force. You're just a pain in the ass. Like, by definition of what you do, you're just a pain in the ass.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I imagine what really happened, especially back then with, like, limited resources and stuff. You'd take the fort and probably, like, ransack it. So even when reinforcements got there, then they'd have to be like, is it worth reestablishing a stronghold here or whatever?
It's just pirate shit.
Right. Among his notable victories were the forts at Portobello, which is in Panama, Ribhacha, which is a treasure port in present-day Colombia. I'm not sure what a treasure port is, but that sounds like the kind of place I'd want to attack. And Amelia Island, which is just north of Jacksonville, Florida. So that's to say that Mr. MacGregor got around. It wasn't like he was like terrorizing a certain area because he knew that wouldn't work. He had no chance against the like full Spanish armada or whatever. But he would just like sail wherever the hell he wanted to and be like, yeah, we're attacking these guys.
They look like they're not ready for a random, completely pointless attack.
He was probably catching the forts like as they were abandoning him, and that's why he was so good at capturing them. He'd wait till the last ship leaves, and then he'd run in and hoist the flag and be like, ha ha ha!
I'm going to do that now with just houses that are up for sale. Like just like climb in through a window and raise a flag up through the chimney.
This is mine now. I hear sirens. I'm taking off.
But I claimed it.
It's going in my biography, my war journal. In 1820, he landed off the coast of Nicaragua. 200 years earlier, the area had become a popular spot for pirates and outlaws. In the 1670s, seeking protection from said pirates and outlaws, the local tribes made a deal to recognize British sovereignty, which I'm sure they were super thrilled about. However, by the end of the 1700s, Britain no longer really had a use for the area. The piracy problem was pretty well, it wasn't over, but like I mentioned earlier, the golden age of piracy where it was just like out of control had kind of passed. So by the 1700s, British had abandoned these posts. So when MacGregor arrived and met with the natives, he learned that they were simply desperate for protection and really wanted to appoint him as their new leader in exchange for Britain's protection, which I'm sure is exactly how it actually went down.
Right.
One of the fun, not gross parts about colonialism is the way that they rewrite history to make it sound like, oh, these people, they were desperate they wanted us to take all their stuff.
Everything was settled with a firm, agreeable handshake.
Handshake, yeah. Like, we really thought we were going to just keep going on, but they begged and begged for us to take their lands and everything else. Yeah. Though Gregor flourished in battle, the opportunity to retire from active military service and take up a prestigious position in government sounded pretty nice.
Loser.
So when Gregor MacGregor returned to London in 1820, so later that same year, the people of London would sit up and take notice of his return, because he was such a beloved war hero. As it turns out, they couldn't help but take notice because, of course, Gregor MacGregor was a tireless and shameless self-promoter who never passed up the opportunity to boast about his
Hey, you're the guy who didn't
career.
actually accomplish a fucking thing, but you did a lot. Yay.
As it turns out, it seems like he fell in that perfect position, and you could probably tie this to present-day politics, where his name was recognizable. People, like, he did have some name recognition, but it wasn't like he was a storied... Like, they weren't singing operas about him. So when you show up and you're just like, well known enough that people are like, that name sounds familiar. And you're also like very egotistical, and you show up and say, I'm back. Your war hero who had all these victories and did all these accomplishments is back. People are like, oh, yeah, here he comes. And that's exactly kind of what happened. Like I say, many of his most impressive military feats were, in fact, already known by the people of England, and he was respected. Part of that's, like I said, he came from a respected family, too. It's not like he was some random person that rose through the ranks.
That's the greater Gregor MacGregor family.
So what people didn't already know until he came back to England was that Gregor MacGregor of the MacGregor's had a new title. His
King
Serene
Gregor.
Highness, pretty much, His Serene Highness Gregor I, Kaziki of the Principality of Poiais. And Kaziki's prince. So basically, he came back, he's like, by the way, I'm prince of this new country, Poiais. And he now ruled it, and it was bestowed upon him by the tribes of Nicaragua, because, like I mentioned, they were desperate for some white British dude to rule over them.
And say, like, if he ever, like, if I was in charge of, like, England or something, or, you know, wherever he was, like, if I had my own country, basically, there would be certain titles that if you gave them to yourself would lead to immediate execution. It's like, you don't get to call yourself that.
I'm guessing His Serene Highness Gregor of the First, which is weird because he is far from the first.
He was already, like, not treading lightly with Gregor MacGregor, you know,
right.
Like, and that's where, you know, in the moment he...
Kaziki of the Principality, yeah.
Yeah, nope. Those are too many syllables, and that's what the guillotine was meant to cut out.
His business cards were poster-sized.
Yeah, so a business card you have to unfold like 5 times.
So when Gregor MacGregor wasn't busy hobnobbing with the rich and famous, he was busy commissioning extravagant oil paintings of himself and distributing pamphlets extolling the virtues of the tropical paradise that he now ruled over. Poiais was as lucrative as it was beautiful, a lush tropical Eden just rife with all manner of natural resources, just waiting to be plucked by anyone motivated enough to do so. And of course, for just a minimum of labor, one could become rich beyond their wildest dreams. He had paintings made depicting the impressive capital city with suspended bridges that spanned lush jungle foliage, and connected magnificent domed buildings. The city had a palace, banks, an opera house, mansions, and more. Basically, like everything a modern-day Londoner could want in a tropical, like, paradise city. Like, it was Atlantis, basically. Plentiful food, beautiful native women, blue seas. Yeah.
All well earned.
So as more and more people began to find out about the new opportunities awaiting them overseas, offices began popping up where hopeful settlers could purchase their very own land, getting in on the literal ground floor. Gregor was even able to leverage his country and its bountiful resources to secure a loan of £200,000, which my rough conversion, like, I didn't spend too much time trying to figure this out, but it suggested that it comes to over like $6 million in today's, currency. So by the time that the first 70 settlers were ready to set sail in September of 1822, MacGregor had even begun printing his own MacGregor bucks. I don't know what he called them, but the national currency of Poiais, which of course featured his picture on all the bills. Most of the settlers and made sure to exchange their worthless European coins for the new Poiais currency prior to leaving for their new life. Another 200 settlers departed from British soil in January of 1823, so about 3 or 4 months later. These initial settlers between both boats were mostly older, poorer citizens just looking for a new start on life after living through England's countless wars. We talked about that for the past couple weeks on some of our topics, where just it's easy to picture the overall toll that war takes on countries and just the geopolitical landscape, but it's easy to forget about what it's like for maybe a farmer who hasn't been able to farm for 3 generations because they were constantly, fighting stupid battles and stuff.
Because corn doesn't grow well in blood.
Right. Or it grows very well. I don't know.
Or it grows perfectly, yeah. That's a horror
but you
movie.
just don't have to...
waiting to be written.
But anyway, so yeah, they were mostly like older, like poorer citizens that were just kind of desperate for a new start on life. And you know how it's the segment of society that already feels overlooked and exploited by their governments because they are overlooked and exploited by their governments. And then so they hear a new country where anybody can be rich, and it's like, fuck yeah, that sounds great. Or at least it doesn't sound worse than here. Although the ships did carry a number of like more well-to-do citizenry who had been appointed important government titles by none other than the Prince of Poeas himself. People were eager to start their new lives of tropical wealth, but this is a non-essential podcast, so that of course means that they shouldn't have been eager for it. When the second ship arrived in Poeas, they were greeted by nothing but jungle, natives, and the settlers from the first ship who were still alive, who couldn't afford to make the return trip home when they got there and found out that there was nothing fucking there. As it turns out, Poeas occupied part of the globe that had been formerly known as the Mosquito Coast. It was a tropical, paradise, I guess, if you like that stuff, but it was very, very tropical, and not in like the Sandals Resort sort of way. It was just hot, like with unworkable land, and most importantly, like nothing there, no capital city, no trade markets, no gold or silver mines, just heat, swamp, bugs, disease, and the few natives that like were willing to come around the white man. So most awesome. Of the settlers, yeah.
Like, I want to...
And especially when you remember that he got a lot of these people, not all of them, but most of them, to exchange their actual money for MacGregor money.
Yeah. Well, like, you just imagine you're at that point of just such desperate, like, hope of, like, I can restart my life somewhere beautiful with opportunity just knocking, and then it's like you go through that whole fucking process, and then it's just like, there's nothing here. Like, wait.
Yeah. And imagine how horrible that must feel. Like, I feel like in modern day, like if you just got dropped off in some remote part of the globe in the tropics with nothing, like you'd be like, well, I'm dead.
That's basically how I feel anytime I visit my dad. Whatever new town he's in, I get there and I'm like, wait, what? This isn't livable.
But like, at least today you have the hope of maybe finding somebody with like a cell phone or just any kind of like communication with the outside world. Back then it's just like, yeah, damn it.
No, that's what's scary most of all is when you go to his place and it's like, actually you don't have any cell phone connection. Mm-hmm. And there's one spot of land that does have it, and it's surrounded by snakes. So.
Well, they got calls to make. I mean.
Yeah. That's the thing. Snakes are drawn to cell phones. I learned that.
So, most of the settlers were taken to nearby British Honduras, which, while a far stretch from like the lavish paradise that MacGregor had promised, at least it was like a populated area where they could languish in the company of other like poor, destitute, dying British people.
Yeah, at least we can do this together, friends.
About 50 of the settlers were able to secure passage back to London, arriving in October of 1883. So, about 10 months after they left. So news of the fraud quickly spread, of course. As soon as they get back, they're like, hey, this motherfucker sold us nothing. It's not like you move back in and go, oh, well, I just didn't like it there. So once
here.
Yeah, as news of that, the fraud started to spread, Gregor MacGregor made his second most heroic retreat out of London. Unlike the relentless Harold Hill, Gregor MacGregor wasn't going to let a little thing like being run out of town end his con. I said unlike, but it's exactly like the Harold Hill. Whatever.
Just as determined.
Don't worry, I've got one more Music Man reference coming up here, too. In 1824, he reappeared, this time in France, where he presumably sang about trouble with the capital T that rhymes with P that stands for Poeas. This time he managed to secure a loan worth over $9 million in today's, currency. But as a ship full of eager Frenchmen and women boarded to head back over for paradise, the French government decided they should probably step in and not let these people sail for a fictional country, and they seized the ship. So
it's like a Pirates of the Caribbean thing. It was like, we can only go to Poeas if you don't know where it is.
Right. Well, and that tells me too, he's like making these big $9 million deals. He's like, but don't tell the authorities. And then at the last minute, the authorities find out. They're like, that's not a real place, you morons.
Stop.
And the French apparently care more about their citizens than Britain does, because they're like, no, you're not going over there. So they seized the ship. Gregor and a number of people associated with the fraudulent loans were arrested. But at least for MacGregor, he wouldn't remain in jail for long. I didn't find anything out for sure, but given everything else we've ever learned about justice systems throughout history, over the last 70 episodes of the show that we've done, I'd wager that the others were probably beheaded and then shot out of cannons or something. Yeah. Because that's what always happens. The main guy, they're like, oh, tisk tisk, don't you do that again. And wait, you carried loan paperwork that was fiction? Death.
You have a dangerously foreign last name, son. You might... I suspect you might be the ringleader.
In 1826, Gregor returned to London because, of course, he did. And this time he raised over $24 million in loans and investments for his fictional country. And if you ask me, the people of London if they're that stupid to forget that all this already happened just 3 years prior, they kind of deserve to be defrauded.
They should go straight to Poeas.
I give him credit. He pulled the exact same con twice in the same country, but each time he made more money.
Yeah. Because he really believed it. That's the sell.
Yeah. Things weren't all smooth sailing for Gregor, as by now other people had started selling deeds to land in Poeas, and he found himself in direct competition with them over the rights to non-existent property and resources. So this, whole ecosystem of selling land deeds to a country that didn't exist cropped up, and I just love the idea that he shows up to, I'm selling land in my country, and they're like, we're selling land in your country. It's like, right. What?
Could you imagine if it was a fucking hostile capitalist market for moon adoption and shit
which exactly, yeah, I mean, and that's exactly what it would be. And the funniest part to me is he knows it's a completely bullshit country and that he's selling nothing, but he knows that they're doing that, but you can't say that. It's not like you can come out and be like, you can't do that, that country doesn't exist, because you're pulling the same con.
Right.
So you're just like, so son of bitches, they stole my idea. Anyway, after running his con for over 15 years, the game got too tough for him, and in 1839 he moved back to Venezuela, where he'd draw on his military pension until his death in December of 1845.
I can't believe he wouldn't retire in beautiful Poeas.
Yeah, you'd think if you ruled a country, that's where you'd retire to, but
what a guy.
I guess not. So there's no weird twist. That's the only thing this story was missing from unusual, is that there's no comeuppance. In fact, it sounds like he's still kind of considered a war hero in Venezuela. It makes sense if he helped them gain their independence. So he and really he should.
And they really liked his Poeas timeshares he brought back with him.
Well, they probably hated the British too, so they're like, yeah, if you defrauded them, good for you. But
Poeas, which is Spanish for you dumb fucker.
Mm-hmm. I just love that, he was this rambling military mercenary, basically. And then, I almost picture him like a Lieutenant Dan, where all he knows is that he has this proud military tradition to live up to, but no real idea how to do that. I was supposed to die in Venezuela. I was supposed
to die in the field, but then I switched sides so I could survive.
And then it's like, I wonder at what point in his exploits over there he was settling around. It's like, you know what? I could just make up a country.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that way every day. It was like, if I get in an argument at work, I can just easily be like, do you know who the hell I am? You know who you're talking to? I do this for fun, but I am from Poeas.
Poeas. I'm the Kaziki. I think I'm saying that right, but yeah. What I think probably really happened is he landed there, and those natives that they painted as so eager to be like ruled over, he was like, "Hey, I noticed the British are gone. Can I rule you guys?" And they're like, "No." And he's like, "Come on." And they're like, "No." He's like, "Well, I'm going to tell everybody I am." And they're like, "Whatever."
I feel like Gregor MacGregor is something you would call yourself, like the top dog. It sounds like a Guy Ritchie film or something.
You know what? If I ever gain access to a time machine, I want to go back to the day that first ship landed with the people on it. Like, there was a guy that had been appointed like the secretary treasurer of Poeas, and like, I want to be there to see his face when he gets off the boat and he goes up to like the nearest native. He's like, "All right, so where's the Capitol building?"
Hang on. I'll go talk to him. Guys, I need you to pretend like I run shit around here. You're cool, right? You're not gonna make me look stupid, and just roll with it, all right?
What's amazing to me is that he was pulling this stuff, and well, I guess it sounds like he never really set sail again until he sailed back to Venezuela, but Spain never seemed to come after him. You would have thought that they would have, like, after just randomly like attacking their ports and stuff, you just thought he'd have been one of their public enemies number one, but
well, I mean, maybe they're like, if this is what he did to forts that weren't doing anything whatsoever, imagine what he'll do if we really piss him off.
Whereas they were like, yeah, he's just some sailor. He's the Prince of Poeas. Fuck, we don't want to get in a war with Poeas. I hear that's a hell of a nation.
The fucking nuclear superpower Poeas.
I guess the moral of the story this week is, like, if somebody tells you something's really awesome, like, find a second source.
Buy property immediately, because the prices have never been better.
Don't bother to pack when you leave, because there'll be such nice stuff when you get there that you won't even want your old crap anyway.
Like, Poeas would be a great name for like an e-currency scam. Like, I put everything into Poeas. I'm fucking broke.
See, to me, it sounds like some kind of Spanish like tapas, like snack dish. Like,
it sounds like a hummus or something.
Yeah,
I like. It's like Mediterranean herb Poeas.
It's what you dip your bread in while you're sitting on your beach, like admiring your beautiful capital city that you totally have.
Yeah.
But
anyway,
I give him credit for putting in the extra work, like printing up like false depictions of the city and stuff too. Be like, yeah, look at it. Just, you can.
Maybe he thought Venezuela was Poeas by the end of his life, because he's like, this seems about right. They treat me like a fucking god around here.
That's the problem. He meant to send people to Venezuela, but he like forgot where things were. And he's like, I think it was right around these coordinates. Like, go for it.
Well, I if there's one thing I love, it's a dumb piece of shit getting a happy ending. And all the people that he fleeced, like, getting screwed. Like, there's probably people still living in those areas of the world that are like generations from these people that just had nothing and got stuck, like, living still
homeless
looking for that plot of land their ancestors bought. Yeah,
joke's on us. Poeas actually is a country, just nobody knows it yet. Like, we should like claim to found
like that island they found that's just like covered in snakes.
Snake Island.
Yeah, it's if you ever want to freak yourself out, look up pictures of that fucking madness.
There's supposed to be treasure on it, though, of course.
Yeah, I'm sure it's fucking loaded, and as soon as we carpet bomb it, we'll send some people in. But Anyway, yeah. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening throughout the year. We'll be back in 2020 with more fucking shit that we found. Have a great Christmas and a great New Year.
Nonessential podcast. More fucking shit that we found.
Yeah. That's on our fucking toilet paper roll long business card. It's two guys who tell each other stories and a bunch of shit they found on the internet and, you know, fucking whatever.
And it may or may not be true, but we don't care. We're talking about it anyway.
If two people say it's real, we go with that. Yeah, thank you for listening. See you next time. Thank you, Lincoln.